Welcome to all of you that are seeing this video right now. We just want to welcome you with all our heart from the Elkton Bible Baptist Church. And right now, we want you to join with us as we start our worship service and we sing, "That's Why We Praise Him." So let's all sing together.
That's why we praise Him, and that's why Thank you for joining with us again today. It's always good to have you with us, and we really pray and believe that this could help you in your Christian walk. And so today I will be talking on the joy of giving. Now last week Eric talked about the fear of death, and today I want to approach the fear of financial woes. And so let's begin with prayer and we'll get right into it. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for each one that's viewing this. And we know that your Holy Spirit will speak to us if we only listen. And help us as we listen to be doers of the word and not hearers only, so we won't deceive ourselves. So thank you once again. We look forward to looking at your word and you teaching us what you have. In Christ's name, amen. I think this is a true story, and I believe it happened down in Texas. A woman was shopping at a grocery store. She checked out. She had 2 bags in her hands, and she was older, a little bit older, and she was walking out to her car, and as she got close to her car, she saw that 4 men were sitting in her car. And so she got close to them. She says, "You guys better get out." And they refused to move. So she set down the bags on the trunk and pulled out a revolver and said, "If you don't get out of my car right now, I am going to shoot you, and I know how to do that." Well, that scared them off. I mean, they just bailed out of 4 doors and just went running. And so she put her groceries in the back seat, got into the car, put the key in ignition, but it didn't fit. And she tried it again, and it didn't fit. And one more time, she tries it, and it doesn't fit. So all of a sudden, she looks, and over on the next line of cars is her car. So she's devastated. She gets in her car, and the first thing she does is she goes to the police station. She gets to the police station, she walks in, and she starts explaining to the officer behind the desk. And as soon as she starts explaining about taking out the revolver, he starts dying laughing. He just can't control himself, and she doesn't know why, and she continues to tell her story. And as soon as she's done and he's laughing, he says, "If you look over there, there's 4 men, and they just talked about a gray-haired old lady that was going to shoot them." Now, you say, what does that have to do with what I'm going to say? It's this. Sometimes she thought it was her car, but it wasn't. And that has happened before. I remember my mom coming out of the cash market, getting into a car that looked exactly like hers, and she couldn't figure out why her key didn't work. So what we're looking at today is, I've entitled the message, "It's All His Anyway." Let me read you Psalms 24, 1 and 2. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For he founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. What does that say? The earth is the Lord's, and what? Everything in it. And the world and all who live in it. So he owns everything that's living, and he owns everything that's in the world. But that's not all. In Haggai 2:8 it says this, the silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares the Lord God Almighty. Now when we think of silver and gold, we could liken that to our money, to our currency, to our bank account. Recently I was sent to Great Falls, Montana to pick up a motor coach for the company I work for, Mid-Columbia Bus Company, and they gave me a credit card. And you probably can't see it, but I'm just holding up a credit card right here. And on it, it says Rodney Wilgus, Mid-Columbia Bus Company. And it has a bunch of numbers, and they gave me a PIN number so that I could use it. And because I was going so far, they upped the amount to $2,500 that I could use. Now, when I went on that trip, I could use it for whatever I needed, but it was in the scope of what I was there for. So when I came back and I turned in my receipts, I had for 3 nights lodging and for 7 meals. And that's all. Now, I had gone to a store and there was some stuff that I really wanted to buy and a few things I bought for myself, but I did not use that credit card because that was not my money. My credit card was okay. So, God is the owner of all of our money and all of our stuff, whether we realize it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not. We are merely managers of it. Now think about that. He owns it all, and we are managers or stewards of it. So we need to look at our finances differently. Here's a thought. Everything that you have comes from God. Everything. In Psalms 89:11, it says this, the heavens are yours, and yours also the earth. You founded the world and all that is in it. So everything that we possess, our bank accounts, our cars, our homes, and everything, not in theory, but in reality, belong to God. And we are just stewards and managers of it. Now think of this. Let's say that you earn $400 next week, and you decide to tithe because God wants us to give and give to Him. And so you figure out, okay, my tithe will be $40. And so you write your check or put the $40 in and think, the rest is mine. But that's not the case. It's the Lord's. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7, this is what it says. For who makes you different from anyone else? What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did not receive it, why do you boast as though you did not? 3 questions there. The first question is, for who makes you different from anyone else? Not us. Only God makes us different from anybody else. The second question, what do you have that you did not receive? Now we can say, well, I've got this car, I've got this, I've got this. We received it all from the Lord. And the third question, and if you did not receive it, why do you boast as though you did not? I know that a lot of people boast of what they have, but they don't include that it's not really theirs, it's God's. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 17 and 18 says this, "You may say to yourselves, my power and strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me." Have you ever talked to people who said, "I'm a self-made man, I'm a self-made woman. I did it my way"? Think of that song. Frank Sinatra, "I did it my way." Well, the Bible is telling us that He is the one that gave us the power and strength of our hands. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Now, for some of you in here, you can produce wealth sitting in an office, working numbers. Some of you here perhaps are good cooks, and you can make it by cooking, I guess that, by making stuff. Some of you are very mechanical, and you do it that way. Some of you are truck drivers, and you do it that way. God gave us the ability to do that. I'll read that verse 18 again. "But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." So as a manager, you and I have a divine responsibility. And that is, we must think like a manager with no sense of entitlement. That means just recognize that it's God's stuff. Now, here's a neat thing about it. If it's God's stuff, everything, our finances, our cars, our possessions, and all of that, so when your refrigerator breaks down, whose refrigerator broke down? God's. And He can provide for you to get another one. It is my responsibility to find out how to use His assets according to His will. So you must be in tune with God and recognize it's His, and in tune with His Word and what He wants you to do in your life. This will affect how we give to the Lord and to others. And so this is how we are to give to the Lord and to others. The first is give abundantly. This is from David in 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse number 14. They are bringing stuff so that Solomon may make the temple when it's time. And this is what David said, "But who am I, and who are my people, that we should be able to give as generously as this?" He's saying, we have given generously. But who are we to have done this? Because this is the next statement. Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. So what's happening is, it's God's money, and when we give to God and for others, we're giving His money. And it's not ours anyway. Now, we have had 2 Myanmar projects. The first one was the wells. We found out we could make 7 wells, or pay for 7 wells for needy people over there for only $5,000. And so we spent about 2 months and raised $5,000 for those wells. After that, Doug and I went to Myanmar, and while we were there, we saw went to preach at this guy's place, and he lived in a thatched house, and under the thatched house was where they had the services. He had been kicked out of 8 different places in the city where he's trying to start a church because the Buddhists did not want him there. And so he's down there and just doing his best. And while we are there, we found out that they could buy a 100 by 100 lot for $9,000. And so we began thinking about it and thinking, that's probably a good idea. So we came back and brought that up to the church and say, let's raise some money, just as much as we can. We didn't know if we could raise $9,000 or not. So we said we'll go from the first week of December to Valentine's Day. And around Valentine's Day, we had $5,000 saved up, and the cost was $9,000. Well, a week before that, we had one of the men in our church says, I will pay the balance to get it up to $9,000. And so we were able to send the $9,000 to purchase the property. Now, while we were over there, the church had given us, Doug and I, some money to just whatever we needed it for. At one place, at one of the wells, they needed a pump. And I asked Paul, the guy that was our guide there, I said, how much would a pump cost? He said $200. Well, I just had 200 of our church dollars, two $100 bills, and gave it to him. Then when we were at Silas's place where we bought the property, his motorbike was broke down, and their motorbikes, they build boxes on it, so it's kind of almost like a pickup truck, and that's how the pastors there would earn their money. And his was broke down, and I asked Paul, how much would it take to fix it? He asked Silas. Silas says $100. Well, that was the next $100 that I was able to give to Paul for that to happen. Giving abundantly, and this, you as a church have given abundantly every time that we've had needs like this. This building is an example. We never asked for money, but it just came in as it was needed. Give sacrificially as well. Now, this is an interesting passage. It's a little bit long, but it won't take me long to read it. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 1 through 5. And now, brothers, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. One of those churches is Philippi. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. These were very, very poor people. He goes on to say, for I testify that they gave as much as they were able and even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord and then to us in keeping with God's will. So there's one thing there is you give yourself first to the Lord, then you will begin to be generous with His money because you realize it's not your money, it's His money, and He's directing you to do that. Now in Philippians 4:19, it says this, and my God shall supply all your need according to His riches and glory through Christ Jesus. Now, I believe that this is a promise that is an answer to something that you are doing. And that is when you are giving generously, then God has that promise that He will provide for you. The next saying is to give joyfully. 2 Corinthians 9:7 says this, each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Joyful giving is a sign that I understand my relationship as a manager of God's assets. When I was young, probably about 6 or 7, my dad, for a short time, gave my brother and I an allowance. Our allowance was every Sunday, for not too long, but for every Sunday he gave us a nickel and a dime. And he says, you can have part of it, the other part goes to the church. Can you guess which part, he said, went to the church? It was a dime. And so my brother and I, and my other siblings later on, we grew up learning to give. Now, I had an incident happen. So I was living in an area that never had snow, but in the mountains occasionally had snow. And our youth group was thinking about going on a snow trip. But before that happened, a friend of mine at school, one of my classmates, his name was Rick Fox. Rick Fox was going to have his bar mitzvah, and he was going to be gone for a week, and he needed somebody to do his paper route. Now, I had done paper routes before, and I just quit. And at that time, our church had what was called Faith Promise Offering to send money to the Philippines, to a guy by the name of Howard Hughes to use in his mission there. So what you do in Faith Promise is you ask the Lord how much He wants you to give, and then you expect Him to bring it in, and if He does, you give it, and if He doesn't, you don't. Well, for some reason, $10 came to my mind. So I promised that, and then Rick Fox said, will you deliver my papers for 1 week for $10? Yes, there it is. But then the snow trip came up, and we very seldom ever got to play in the snow. And so here I had this thing. The snow trip happened right when I was supposed to deliver papers. And boy, that was hard on me. In fact, I talked to my folks about it, and they let me make the decision, although they said, what do you think the Lord wants you to do? And I think Mom might have even put it into it, you can if you want, but this will hurt me. So how can I hurt my mom? So I decided to do that. And so they're all having fun. They come back. They're so excited about it. And I'm thinking, I will never, ever be in the snow like that. Well, a year and a half later, we moved to Elkton. And 4 years after that, we had 4 foot of snow here. So I got the snow later on. But about 30 years later, we had a missionary, and he had been the son of a missionary, and his dad was in Taiwan, but was in contact with Christians in Red China. And he told about that during the year 1963, that missionaries from Bob Hughes, see, the Filipinos could get into Red China, but they came on bicycles, and the bicycles cost $10. Connect the dots. Connect the dots. That's one of the reasons I'm a joyful giver, is because of things like that. 2 more verses, 2 more passages. The people, Moses is getting ready to have the tabernacle built, and people are bringing in gifts. Exodus 36, 4 and 7 says this, the people are bringing more than enough for doing the work the Lord commanded to be done. Then Moses gave an order, and they sent this word throughout the camp. No man or woman is to make anything else as an offering for the sanctuary. And so the people were restrained from bringing more because what they already had was more than enough to do all the work. And that's what we want to happen in our church, that more than enough to do all the work. Now, this is going to, as you hear this, some of you, this is something just brand new. Some of you, you're hilarious givers already. I mean, you enjoyed it. The stories I could tell, the stories they could tell would really crack you up. But Romans 14, 10 through 12 says this, for we will all stand before God's judgment seat. So then each of us will give an account of himself to God. We're going to give account of how we spent time. we're going to give account of how we use the abilities God gave us. And we're going to give an account of how we manage and steward God's money that He gave us. And on that day, I want you to be able to say, or Him to say to you, well done, thou good and faithful servant. You say, well, I've never done that before. Start today. Enjoy giving. Because if you do, and you really get involved in it, you will not have to worry about money from then on, because you'll realize that He will supply what you give. Father in heaven, we thank you for this time. I pray that this has been helpful, and I pray that each of us would have freedom in giving and experience the joy of giving. And I just pray for your blessing upon each person that is listening to this right now. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, thank you for joining with us, and we look forward to once again being able to bring messages to you from God's Word and from the Elkton Bible Baptist Church. Thank you so much.